So today on the Zen Perry Project, we have Emily Wolfe. I'm very excited about this interview. Your sound is incredible. Love the way you play guitar. I love the way your instrumentation on your albums. I love the way you play live, and I'm very excited to see you when I do. But yeah, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for being here.
Thanks. That means a lot. I'm so glad you dig it. Thanks for
Yeah,
having me.
absolutely. No, it's why we do these, you know?
Yeah.
So how you been? Where are you currently?
I've been good. I just got home from the road. I'm in Austin, Texas right now where I live, and it's like a million degrees. But it's good to be back. And yeah, just been trying to decompress from the road. So
Yeah, how was the tour?
it was great. It was great.
Yeah, where'd you go?
Um,
What'd you do?
let's see. So we started out in Columbia, Maryland, and then we went through like the mid east pretty much. So like down through Lexington, Kentucky and Green Bay, like that area. It was like a 2.5 week thing, which is good. That's like probably the perfect amount of time for
Yeah,
a
the
tour,
van
I
didn't
think.
break down on you or anything?
No, no, I'm super OCD about the van. I get it checked like every when I get back from every tour because it's I gotta get to the shows. I can't be running on like, you know, bad oil or whatever, like.
Yep. I've had
Yeah.
a van breakdown on tour and that was a nightmare.
Oh my
So
gosh. Yeah.
just keep the oil going,
Yeah. Keep it clean, dude.
keep it clean. So you started playing guitar at the age of 5, is that right?
Yeah. Yeah.
What was your first guitar? What was the first thing you were learning? Who got you into playing music?
Man, so let's see. Well, I have this little harmony acoustic guitar that I got when I was a kid, and nobody really got me into guitar other than, like I just saw the guitar for the first time and thought it was so cool. Um, did you have that like with drums or anything like that? Was it like
Yeah, my sister's boyfriend. My sister's she's 8 years older than me. And I went to her boyfriend at the time's house, and he just played drums for me. I don't know how that happened, but I was like, oh my God, that's sick. Like
yeah,
that was it.
that yeah, the same feeling. It's like, what is that? Like that's my shit right there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was
Where did
that.
you see the guitar, or where? Like, I mean, what was the first sort of thing that you remember?
Man, I remember it being in a shop. My mom and my sister and I were shopping, and I don't remember why, but we were just out and about. And then I looked over, and it was like the last one on the shelf. It was like hanging from a shelf, and it was like a thrift store vibe. I'm pretty sure it was some kind of thrift store, but um, it was just by itself, like in those like crazy like beige with the holes in them, like those shelves, and then it was hanging, and I that was it for me. Like I just wanted that to be a part of my life, and
You just wanted to hold it. Yeah.
I did. I was like, what is like I had never seen one before,
Yeah.
um, but I knew it was cool, and so yeah, I still have it. It's in my closet behind me, and
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
when's the last time you
That
played it?
oh man, it's broken. It is just full on because it was in my parents' garage for like ever. And so it ended up getting really warped and the neck broke off, so I had to like glue it back on, and there's no strings on it. So it's more of a shadow box item at this point, but it's
That's
there.
rad. Yeah, my first drum set completely fell apart. Yeah, it was like one of those bad drum sets you get from Guitar Center, and my parents were like, "Oh, he's really playing it," because like all the metal parts on it completely cracked in half. So
Yeah,
I guess
that's
we're gonna have to
awesome.
get you a better drum set. Um, that for me. But like, so were you first started like taking lessons? What was the kind of first things you were playing? What were you first doing?
Yeah, I asked my mom for lessons, and she got me lessons um with this guy. He was very old. I was 5, and he like told my mom like she's just not catching on. She's like not a guitar player, man. And my mom was like, okay, I guess. And then, so I guess I was really bad, but I was 5, so whatever. Um, but he was like,
Never,
you want to
man.
learn drums? Yeah. He's like, do you want to learn drums instead? I was like, yeah, I mean, I just want to play music. So he taught me drums. And so technically drums is, it's like my first instrument. And then, you know, down the line, I was like, I'm not going to give up on this. Like, I feel really connected to guitar. So I'm going to pick it up and see what I can do. And that was kind of like the point of like the self-taught journey. But um drums were so much fun that like I tend to kind of play guitar like a drummer. Like, there's like lead and rhythm, which I love to do, but there's also like the way that I write riffs is very like drum based. Um, so like the low string is a kick, and then the higher strings is a snare, and it's very rhythmic. Um, and so I mean the start of my journey was pretty rocky, but I think it brought me to a point that's pretty interesting musically. So I
What were
can't
you first
complain.
listening to or playing along to?
The first song I tried to play was a Jewel song
Hell
because
yeah.
she was like all the rage when I was younger. But I feel like it was like that song Hands or something, you know. Um, but I couldn't do it because I didn't know what the notes were. But I was like, I know, like I really want to be able to do this. So I kind of just ended up turning it into my own song. Um, and I don't remember what the song was, but
It's fine.
um, yeah.
So I guess your parents were super supportive in general because I mean, I think any parents that allow you to have a drum set, they must like you playing music to some extent. Because that's a big it's a big ask to hear a learning drummer. Um,
Yeah,
and you
yeah,
moved to Texas when you were 8, is that right?
it did. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because I didn't get my first drum set until I was probably about 13. Because like, I mean, I grew up like lower middle class, and my dad managed a grocery store, and um, it wasn't, my mom was like, I know she didn't want to hear drums. So like, the cool thing is though, like, I mean, we went to church all the time. I'm not religious anymore, but that's how I like grew up. And um, this guy at the church had an electric drum set, and my mom was kind of like looking around for deals, like how can I get her a kit that's, maybe not as loud. And so she ended up throwing this guy $100 for a Roland like mesh head drum kit. And it was so great. It was like one of those things that I was longing for so long. And then it finally was in my room, and I was just like, oh, Um, but so yeah, they've been so supportive, and um they're just great parents, and I'm super lucky to have parents who, not only believe in me but kind of nurture, you know, have
Yeah.
have nurtured my love of music. And you know, I was as a kid, I was just always in my room, like door locked, like playing guitar or whatever, and they like never bothered me. They were like, okay, well, she's doing something. I don't know. I don't know. um,
She's in the
but
laboratory right now making
it,
something. Yeah.
yeah, I guess so. But
Well,
yeah,
shout out to them. That's great.
yeah, yeah.
Um, what were you first sort of writing, or what was that time like for you? When did you first start writing music?
I first started writing when I was like 15. Um, and that's like when, the angst begins, I guess, for everybody. It's like when you're like, why am I here? What am I? And then it just kind of came out musically, and I started kind of trying to develop a voice, which didn't really develop until I'd say my early 20s in college. But um so yeah, I mean, the songs that I wrote when I was 15 are just like utter garbage. Like, I can't, if I looked back at those now, I'd be like, what? Like, none of this makes sense. But the music was there. So I had to kind of navigate my way through learning how to write a song by listening to really good songwriters, um, and just trying things. Yeah,
Yeah. What was your vision for at the time? Because were you going to Catholic school at the time and like
I
doing all
was.
that?
Yeah,
How was
I
that?
went.
What was like your vision? Like, why were you writing music? Like, did you ever think of yourself playing live or making albums and all that good stuff?
Man, I didn't. I was so shy. So I went to St. Edward's University, which is like a small Catholic school. I'm definitely not Catholic. Um, I'm super like not into religion. It's like not my thing. But I loved the campus and I loved the people, and I honestly feel like everybody who like went to that school at the time, they were like, yeah, we're not Catholic. So, um, but I had a roommate who sang and played a little bit of guitar, and we ended up starting a duo band, and we started playing in coffee shops and stuff, like the on-campus coffee shop, and then we kind of ventured out to different venues in Austin together. Um and yeah, I think at that point I was really afraid to sing. I hadn't I don't know why. I was just super shy because it's such a vulnerable part of somebody, their voice, and so I was very afraid to show that to people. um and one day I was just like, I went through this breakup when I was in my 20s, my early 20s in college, and I ended up just really feeling the need to sing about it. And so I wrote this album as like an acoustic record that I, passed out to all my friends in college. Um, and it ended up like people were like, "You have a great voice." And I was like, "Really? Like what?" And so I don't know. I've still had this thing in my brain that's like I'm just a guitar player who happens to sing. And so I don't know. That's been my approach for a long time. Is I happen to sing, and I do love it. I think it's really fun. Um, but it took me a long time to get to a point where I was okay with singing in front of people. Yeah.
I get that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a hard thing. Public speaking is, people's like number one fear or whatever.
Yeah.
Uh, but also, yeah, singing. What were you first kind of like? I mean, I guess your first album was a breakup record in general.
Yeah.
Like, what were you pissed off about when you were 15? I guess 15 to 25. Like, what did you feel the need to write about?
Man, I think so. I grew up in a suburb of Austin, and it was honestly like I can't complain too much because I was fortunate in the way that I had parents who loved me, a sister who loved me, you know, everything that a kid in the 90s and the early 2000s had. Um I wasn't pissed at that, but I was very uncomfortable in that environment knowing that I was gay, and it wasn't it just like wasn't a thing in suburban Texas. Um and so I internally struggled with that a lot, especially growing up in Southern Baptist churches. So that was like a deep rooted kind of turmoil that I experienced. And then going to college, yeah, I came out and found a partner, and then they ended up like cheating on me. So that was what the record was about. Um, and it was like being in a first relationship after going through all of that turmoil, and then finding someone that I thought was the one, and then they end up being, not the one. That is really what kind of launched my anger, you know. But I don't know. You're in your early 20s and you're in college. It's like I I can't expect that to be an easy time. So, um overall, like I think, it sucked in the moment, but retrospectively, like when you go back, it's like, oh, that kind of made me who I am today. So, um that's that's pretty much it. And
Yeah.
I feel like I'll always kind of go back to that emotional state, especially during shows. And then, everything up until then, like it's just been kind of an uphill battle with my career and my health and my mental state and everything like that. But there have been really great moments that I am really grateful for too.
Yeah. I mean, that must be hard in Texas, uh,
Yeah.
just in general, especially with everything going on now, which we'll get to at some point.
Yeah.
Uh in so your first album, like what was it kind of like getting into the studio or just recording and starting to work, and what was your idea for your albums moving forward after you started being like, oh, maybe I can do this?
Yeah. Um, well, so my first record was acoustic and then it kind of evolved. I found a band. Um, and I was still kind of wading like through what I wanted my sound to be, and I didn't really know what it should be or what I wanted it to be, um, and it was just trial and error, pretty much, playing with different musicians and realizing that some weren't the right fit or didn't, have the 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 right vision in mind. And so I went through this kind of journey of how do I get to a point where I take the reins of my career musically. And it was just, weaving in and out of yeses and nos and errors and, mistakes and everything. And I reached this point where I felt like I really want to have a an identifiable electric guitar sound. Like that's what I really want to do. And then I really want to write good songs that hook people. Um, and when I look back, it makes a lot of sense because I grew up like my dad listening to classic rock and then my mom listening to Motown. And so the arrangements of Motown always stuck with me. And then the guitar tones of classic rock always stuck with me. So mixing those two things together, it's like I went through this whole journey of trying to figure out my sound. And then I'm like, well, I guess it was always there. I just had to figure out where it was. And um, so I guess like, up until 2019 when I did my self-titled kind of first launched record, um, it was it was all, just making mistakes and figuring out what worked and throwing things at the wall and seeing what stuck. But 2019, I mean, I started to get really into like blues and um I guess like Queens of the Stone Age. I got really into Queens of the Stone Age, especially after I met my bass player Evan. And um the 2019 record, you can kind of hear I was trying to go into that direction, but it was like the blues had still had this hold on me. Um, and so ever since then, I've kind of tried to evolve my sound into like just rock and alternative, um and I think that's where my next record coming out in October this year. It's pretty alternative. I don't think that it's not as guitar focused, though there's so much guitar all over it, but it's very, very focused on the songs. So yeah, now I'm
Interesting.
here.
Yeah, that's how you got here.
Yeah,
I think I saw it somewhere, Wikipedia or whatever, like a mix of Queens of the Stone Age and Demi Lovato. So you
yeah.
want to do that.
Well,
And
I definitely don't have a voice like Demi Lovato. However, I love the pop tricks that producers use. Like that, I nerd out on that stuff. It's
like what?
like the subconscious little noises and the um like people in a chorus they'll throw like just air over the chorus to lift it up like subconsciously. Um so like one of those things, and then pop tricks too. It's like you throw a hook right at the top so the listener knows what to expect, and they kind of know it before the chorus happens. Like that kind of stuff is just so interesting to me. So like um pop arrangements are just the best. Like I don't, it's like somebody figured out that formula, and that's the formula that I've chased ever since I figured out that, oh, like okay, there's like a book here. There's a rule book for like, you know, how to stick in somebody's brain. Um so that's like what I try to do. Not every song wants to be that, so um but it's just kind of like that, I guess.
That's
Yeah.
that's the idea. I mean, so I just saw Queens of the Stone Age, I think for my fourth time. I still have a bunch of bruises on me from the pit there, but
Hell yeah, dude.
yeah,
That's awesome.
it was super fun. But I mean, those songs, they're more or less kind of pop songs. I mean, of
Yeah,
course they have a bunch of stuff on their discography that's like super weird and like,
right.
drug addled more
Yeah.
mindset, but yeah, I mean they're pop songs and pop arrangements, and I think what's so interesting about them is they have all these like weird little sounds in the songs, like, and people
Yeah,
wouldn't think it's like there's a weird like little tambourine thing going on in the background. There's always something to lift it up higher.
totally. And
And
have you noticed the sax in there? It's like way deep buried in the mix, but it's fucking there and it's so cool.
yeah, just there's just so many weird things they do, and I love
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
think Rick Beato has an episode where they have like this whole string section. He like soloed it for I think No One Knows, and it's like an insane orchestra, and you would just never know that. And it's just this
Wow.
thing that's underlying like a basically a drum solo.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's so rad.
and yeah, I definitely want to talk about recording with you. So well, you got to record with Mike Shoes. Talking, we'll talk about that, but like you also recorded at Muscle Shoals. You were talking about Motown.
Yeah.
Super rad. What was that experience like?
It was so cool. Um there's a spiritual thing there, and I can't really explain it, but it's like there, so like we went to the studio, and right outside there was this river, and Ben Tanner was telling me about that river. He was like, yeah, like they used to do like rituals and stuff, like Native American rituals or whatever on this river a long time ago. And I was like, oh, is that what I'm feeling right now? Because there's something kind of eerie but very intriguing about this spot. And and it was really cool. It was, the studio was like darker and dirtier than you would imagine, but I love that kind of stuff. Like I would rather play in like a dirty rock kind of thing than, a pristine studio. Like I don't know why, but um it was a lot of fun. And there were moments like, I don't know if you're into paranormal stuff, but I felt like some crazy shit there. Like I was like, there's some like energies here, and I couldn't explain it, but um, yeah, it was awesome. It
That's
was
so
awesome.
cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
nah, I love that. Paranormal stuff has been popping up on this podcast a lot lately, and
Really?
I freaking love it. Yeah, I don't
That's
know.
awesome.
I think it's just in the zeitgeist right now, of
That's
people are just trying to
I
make sense of this weird world. Uh,
could be it. Yeah.
yeah, anything for escapism, and
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I love New Orleans. I love like dark, dingy places and
Yeah.
just all that sort of stuff. I don't know why. I had a pretty similar upbringing to you, where it's like, suburbs, nothing to complain about. My parents love me and all that stuff, but I always just kind of like gravitated towards darker stuff. I don't know
Right.
why.
Yeah.
I can't explain it.
Definitely.
But
Yeah.
so yeah, so recording, like, were you naturally involved in the recording process? Did you like record yourself? What was that process like for you? How'd you like hearing your voice back when you started working in these studios with like proper engineers and all that stuff?
Oh my God. I I couldn't take it. Like I couldn't listen to myself. Um, and I don't know why. Because like I think when I was trying to figure out how to sing, because it's one of those things, like I like to teach myself how to do things because I want to figure out, like how to independently do something. I don't really like to follow rules and be taught things, you know. Um, and so I kind of had like I figured out how to, I guess, teach myself how to sing, and when I started out, it was very like I closed my throat a lot, and I sounded to myself, I sounded like a chipmunk. And there's still moments when I feel like that, like I sound like a chipmunk, but I've had so many people be like, you don't sound that
You
way. Like,
don't.
oh, thanks, thank you so much. I'm really trying to believe people, and I've gotten to a point where I think I can believe them, but um, yeah, I mean, I love recording. Like, I had, let's see, I still have them actually. I have two Panasonic tape recorders, like old 80s ones that my mom and dad had laying around, and tapes. And so I'd play into the internal microphone like when I was a kid, like 15, 16. This is how I started with like multi-tracking. But I'd press record and play into the internal mic in one, and then take another recorder and then record what I did on the other recorder on that. And it sounded so bad. It was so fucking bad, but it was so much fun. And so then I started to kind of, I guess at the time it was askjeeves.com and not Google.
I
But
remember that.
yeah, I'd go to Ask Jeeves and be like, how to record. And then all these things popped up, like the Boss BR600 was a thing. Um, and it's like this little multi-track recording interface. And like I begged my mom for it. She surprised me with it for Christmas one year. And that kind of started like a whole thing for me, um, in terms of recording. And I've always been super interested in it. Um, and just like I don't know, like and now like I'll have friends come over and just they'll be like, I wrote this song. Do you want to throw it on SoundCloud? I'm like, yes, record. And it's so much fun to be like, all right, let's put some compression on here. I don't know. It's so much fun. Like I think my goal at by the end of my life is to have produced some records for other people. Like once I get really old and like I can't tour anymore, I'll just be, press and record and you know, like it'd be so fun. Um, but yeah, it was really fun to produce this upcoming album, which I'd never produced myself before. Um, but I think after
What does that
working,
mean for you? Like what do you see the role as of the producer for you or for somebody else that's produced your albums?
yeah. So for me, production has been, let's see. So basically, what I did for this record was I mapped out every day. So, today we're going to do drums for these songs, and then guitar, and then bass. And it's like kind of scheduling, and then a little bit of budget stuff. And then I worked at like a music store for a really long time. And what I did was I worked in the back by myself, and I checked in all the audio equipment, like all the compressors, all the mics. And over 4 years of working there, I got a really good idea of what everything sounded like. So I picked all the mics for everything on this record. I picked compressors, and do we want to go direct through the board with this guitar or not? Like, um, I pulled a little Tim Palmer trick where I taped an SM57 to a remote control car, and then like like drove it around the tracking room to get some like weird feedback, kind of like a rotary effect thing. Um, and then there were a lot of different guitar tone techniques that I used. Um, so like it. Sorry, am I rambling? I feel like
No,
I'm rambling.
this is fascinating. Keep it going.
Okay, sick. Okay, so at this music store that I worked at, it was like a rental company. So they would rent gear for forever until the gear broke. And so there was this thing upstairs where we ate lunch, and it was called the Boneyard. And the Boneyard was all of the broken or semi-broken equipment, which I love. Like I love broken electronics, and I don't know why, but it's like I just feel like there's a way to fix them or reconcile them. So I got this CD recorder thing. It's a Marantz CD recorder where like you literally like put a CD in and press record and it pops out like a shitty record for you or whatever. And so I saw it and I was like, that thing is awesome. And everybody was telling me like, you can have it. It's broken. Like you're not gonna fix it. And so I took it home and I plugged into all the different inputs. I was like, yeah, this thing's broken. But then I found the phone's output worked. And then if you if you tweak one side of this double input thing, it works. So basically what I did for a lot of the guitar tones was put my guitar into the CD player, used it as a pedal, and then put it into a vibrocham. And it sounds so cool. It's like the weirdest tones. It's like I just love shitty guitar tone, but in like really high quality equipment, you know? And so that was one of the things I did. The drum tones, uh, I like researched Steve Albini's tones. Like, how did he do this? And one of the things that I thought was really rad was he took those Coles 4038s and put them behind the drummer instead of in front. So you get like the you hear like from the drummer's perspective, like what they sound like. Because like as a drummer, like I hate it when the hi-hat's on the right. I hate
Yeah.
that shit. It's such a bummer because I can't play drums in my car, like air drums. So it's just like it just doesn't make sense. So like I did that. I did some other miking techniques. One thing was I took the Panasonic cassette recorder. I went line out through a direct box and into the board. And so every drum take that my drummer would do, I would press record on the Panasonic thing and you would get the tape sound. So like the tape drum sound. And it added this really cool high end and this bizarro mid range. So there's the dry drums with the mics and then also the cassette tape drum section and we layered them all up. Um and it's just so much fun. It's like
Wow.
painting. Like it's like sonic painting and it's so much fun. Um yeah,
Wow.
one of my favorite sounds too was there was this like stereo mic above a catwalk that's been on this catwalk in the studio for like 12 years. And it's like you just throw compression on it. It's like oh, it's just like so great. So big. It's the best.
Wow. So that's what being a producer is. I mean, you're constantly finagling with stuff because you've designed guitar pedals. Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
how is that? I mean, I guess since you were working in music stores and you understood what the components were and you were always like fixing stuff, what was the sound that you were trying to get out of maybe the first guitar pedal that you designed?
First guitar pedal. Let's see. Um it was a kit that my bass player got me for my birthday and it was like $70, just like a tube screamer or whatever. And I built it and as soon as I plugged it in and it worked, that was like the biggest rush of my life. Like I loved it. So and then kind of, um like out of nowhere, this guy Seth from Spindrift Audio hit me up and he was like, "Hey, um do you have any weird pedal ideas?" And I was like, "Yes, I do." So I have this Yamaha mixer. It's like the shitty mixer that I plug into because the distortion channel is really rad. And you know, if it's 12:30 at night and my wife's sleeping and has work the next day, I'm not trying to blast the amps. So um I plug into that and put my headphones on and I love it. I love the sound. And so I was like, could you make a pedal based on this mixer? And he was like, yes. So we've been going back and forth and like, do you want to see it? I have it right
Yeah,
here.
please.
Okay. Okay. One sec. The mixer's like, it's like solid state bullshit, just total garbage. But this thing, like, so he built this thing and it's like each channel that I plug into, and then there's like a compression knot. So it's a channel strip. It's like the JHS color box pretty much, but it's
Yeah.
like shitty sounding, but it's awesome. And like you can get super clean and then like really ratty fuzz. Like, but the cool thing is he put this like mid Q knob on it. I was like, man, I can't really play this on my board because my guitar has so much low end in it. So he put the mid Q on there, and then there's like a clipping thing that goes with it that you just like put, and it's like all these different tones. It's so sick.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Sick. And they just reached out to you to do that, to make a pedal.
Yeah. My dream come true.
You're pretty well connected. You've worked with Ben Tanner, Alabama Shakes. You getting hit up by pedal companies, and you worked with Mikey Shoes. How did this all happen? How did you ever think that you were gonna kind of be playing shows and be a rock star and make pedals and record? And did you ever think any of this sort of stuff was gonna happen?
No. No, I didn't. Um, I don't know. I think like, and the thing with shoes, like he taught me so much about production too. Like it was so cool to watch him arrange songs and like the way that he layers so much shit on top of the like I came from like a background where it's like, okay, no instrument gets in the way of the other, but he kind of flipped that mentality on its head for me. And he was like, no, like all this shit, if you put all this shit on it on top of each other, like it'll create its own thing. Um, if that makes any sense.
Yeah,
Like you'll hear things that it's like a painting. Like if you combine a bunch of different colors, there's going to be a color you haven't seen before. And it's the same with music. And that was a really cool thing that I learned from him. Um,
yeah. What's his work ethic like? What's he like in the studio? What's that guy like?
he's so great. He's really determined. Like I feel like he's so focused too. And I've worked with producers in the past that just are not, but like there was one time when I worked with a producer, it's a huge producer, who was like reading a book while I was like, what the fuck is this, man? But Shoes, like he was so in it the whole time, and he's one of those people that's like, if I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it 100%. I'm gonna do it right, and that was really cool to see because I mean, the way that this came about, him producing my last record, it's just like I was in a hotel room and my bass player was like, dude, have you ever thought about reaching out to Shoes about producing this upcoming record? And I was like, I mean, I can see like he's not going to respond. There's no fucking way, but I'll ask my manager to see if he can find him and email him. And like it ended up like my manager sent him an email and he responded that night. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, and so me and my band and I were sharing a hotel room at the time, and we were just like jumping up and down, so excited. But I was like, this is not real. Like, what dimension did I spin into just now? But it was just so great. And then it was during when COVID was kind of starting to take off, and Queens had kind of taken a little bit of a hiatus, and he was like, you know what, I'm not really doing anything. Like, why not? Let's do it. Um, and I don't know. I mean, I think I don't know if I'd consider myself well connected as much as I am just kind of like wanting to be friends with people, you know. um, because like that dude is the coolest, you know,
Yeah,
so cool. Um, and I'm such a fan of his work. So like,
yeah. What do
yeah,
you? Yeah, mini mansions, and he's been in a bunch of stuff as well.
yeah.
I mean, that's super rad. Where did you guys record?
We recorded in his garage.
Shit, in
Dude, it's awesome.
LA. Or
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. It is because we were supposed to record at I forgot what the name of it was. It was a big studio where like Heim and like so many things have been made there. But it ended up the owner sold the building like a week before I was supposed to go out there. And so we had to pivot. And he was like, all right, look, I've got this little garage studio underneath my house. Do you want to just do it here? And I was like, yeah, let's fucking go. So we did it there and it was awesome. I mean, hung out with his dog and, like used the restroom in his house. Like, that's
Yeah.
kind of a weird thing to say, but just like, there were moments where I was like, what the fuck? Like, this is so sick. I went from a Holiday Inn Express in Cleveland, Ohio to like Michael Schumann's bathroom just now, so
Yeah.
bizarro. But yeah, like it was pretty makeshift, I mean, we had to like wear masks and get COVID tests in the middle of recording this record. And it was a little room where he had like a computer set up, and then that was like the listening room, and the tracking room was his actual garage, but it was all kind of decked out to be soundproof and sounded cool. And um so yeah, it was fun. It was, you know one
That's
of
so
those super memorable experiences.
yeah, and just I mean it makes sense with your sound as well. Why I'm sure he's a fan of you as well. So that's really
uh,
cool. That,
I hope so. We'll
that's a lot
see,
of work to
but
do for
yeah,
somebody that you don't find, you know,
that's true, you're
to
right.
be a good
Yeah,
musician.
you're
Um
right.
you have your own Epiphone guitar. How did this come about? Let's talk about it.
Yeah. um
You look like
well,
I just like gave you news. You're like, oh.
no, it's like it's crazy because every time I hear it, I'm like, I don't know. It's like this disconnect almost, like where I feel like I am versus when I hear, oh, that happened. I keep trying to get to a point where I feel like those are the same person. you know.
Might never
um
happen, but it did
yeah,
happen. But like the
you're
guitar player.
right. Well, I've been working with Gibson and Epiphone for a while, and then my um rep in Austin, Cody Allen, flew my band and I out to Anaheim for the NAMM conference. And she was like, you're going to play in front of the Epiphone and Gibson people, like, go. It's like, okay. So we did. And then I guess that was it. I mean, it was like kind of right place, right time. And then also, I think at that point, Epiphone had started to create this initiative where they really support and shine a light on emerging artists versus people who have made it like for years or whatever, and who are massive. And um so I think at that point it was like, oh yeah, no, this makes sense to do a signature for one, a woman, a gay woman, a woman who plays a Sheridan that isn't, not many people play a Sheridan. So I think those things kind of all combined is what led to it. And I mean, it's been great. Like, it's by no means a money maker for me, but it did allow me to quit my job. So like, dude, I'm all for it. Like, let's
Ooh.
go. Yeah. Yeah.
What?
My job at the music store. So.
Yeah. What were you looking for in the guitar? Like what did you want? What were you trying to design?
Ooh, I was trying to make the Sheridan more streamlined. So the Sheridan is massive and the headstock is massive. And I mean, I love that guitar, but I also really wanted to kind of make my own version of it. So there's Diamond F holes, which historically are only in the Trini Lopez and the Dave Grohl models, and those guitars are so expensive. Like, not everyone can walk into a music store and pick one of those up. It's just like nobody, like who's gonna drop 10 grand on this? So I saw an opportunity there to give Epiphone players Diamond Effles because one, I wanted them. Two, um, like there's not an Epiphone, semi hollow out there with Diamond Effles yet. So I was like, huh, this could be a really cool thing to do. So the headstock is smaller too. And then there's a 3 knob configuration instead of a 4 knob. So like on the regular Sheridan, there's, 2 volumes, 2 tones. But I can't ever reach that fourth one down there because I'm like 5'4" and that thing is huge. So like I just put like three knobs. So there's a master tone and 2 volume knobs. And let's see what else. It's like a kind of a matte black finish on the first version, and then aged gold hardware and lightning bolt inlays. And then the second one is just white. It's the same guitar, just like a aged bone white finish. So yeah,
Wow. I mean, it sounds awesome, and sounds easier to play. I like the idea
it
of like
is.
streamlining something rather than just like how many things can I fit on this. You're like, no,
Yeah,
I know what I like about it,
right.
and I just want something simpler for me for what I actually need.
Yeah. And I was tempted, when somebody's like, hey, what kind of signature? I'm like, should we do a kill switch? And then it's like, I don't, who's, I don't need a kill switch. But it's like, I could have done, a lot of different things, but I was also kind of thinking about it in a way that's like, as someone who's worked at a music store, whenever we would get guitars in, like from a shipment, and there would be a signature guitar that just had a ton of shit on it, I was really put off by it. And I didn't want people to experience that with this guitar. I wanted them to walk in and be like, oh, this is like just bare bones what I need. Like, let's go. Because to me, I would rather someone go to a show because of the music I make versus the guitar I'm playing. And I wanted other people who are in bands and artists to experience the same thing. Like, I don't want this guitar to be the shining light of your show. I want you to be the thing of your show. So um I and that's kind of why it's called the stealth. The black one's called the stealth because it's there and it's going to support your stuff, but it's not going to get in the way of you. And so the white one is just a more like a brighter version of that.
Yeah. Uh, well, kind of speaking of that, not overcrowding the view of playing shows with cool looking gear. The video, the slider,
Yeah.
that I probably watched that like 25 times now.
Oh,
You playing
sick,
a
dude.
massive like double neck guitar, and I mean this is my buddy Michael, booked this interview, but as soon as I checked that, I was hooked instantly, and then I was like, oh, and the song is super good.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, but that guitar is insanely huge and very flashy, but
It
it sounds
is.
so. Do you play that often? Is that
Oh my gosh, yes. All the time. I love it. And like, and it's funny you mentioned that because like generally I don't want to play flashy guitars, but my bass player is always coming up with ideas. Like he's like, we'll just be driving down the road and he's like, have you ever done this? You ever thought about this? And there was a moment on the road where he was like, you ever played a double neck? And I was like, no, but I want to now. And so I reached out to my rep and I was like, hey, what do you think it would take for me to grab a double neck, like just to loan out? And she was like, here you go, which is awesome. Like Gibson is so good to their artists, it's crazy compared to so many other um companies out there. But anyway, yeah, he was like, dude, like that thing would be such a showstopper. And I'm like, okay, yeah, well, let's stop the show then. So like I started to kind of learn it, and the cool thing about that specific double neck is I put standard 12 string tuning up on top, and then the bottom is drop C. So it's like literally two different guitars right there. So I switch back and forth um, during that song on that guitar. And it's just like a challenge to play, which is fun to me. Um, because like with the signature models, I feel like I know them so well that it's such a part of me to play. But I almost like I kind of want like a little something a little more. And then so it's always fun to pick the double neck up for like two or three songs in a set. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's sick.
Yeah.
I had to get the duality of you being like, yeah, I made a guitar called the Stealth, but I also,
Yeah.
well, you
That's
have both
good
now.
stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome.
And it sounds incredible. I mean, it makes sense that you have the bottom and drop C. I mean, for anybody listening, go check out that video. I mean, check out all your stuff, but it's such a great performance.
Thanks.
Let's talk about Walk in My Shoes, that single.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Yeah.
What's going on? What are you thinking about? And the content of the song is very, it's heavy and it's important. It's also a very dancey song. And
Yeah.
can you just talk
Yeah.
about writing that?
Yeah, totally. So when I started writing the next record, basically what I do is I go into my recording software and I just put down ideas and I name them like whatever's on the top of my head, like whatever. And so I had this riff, which is the riff in the song, and then I went on the road. So I just had this riff in my DAW just sitting there and went on the road. And then towards the end of the tour, I learned that Roe v. Wade was overturned, which was like insane. So we were just in the van, like on the way to the next location, and we're getting all this news from the different sources that all of us kind of go to, and it was insane. I was like, what is going to happen? Like if an unwanted pregnancy happens and I just can't, like nothing can be done. Like my life's over. I don't want kids. I have too much to do. Or what if my nieces, experience something like that? What if, any woman out there has an unwanted pregnancy by any means and can't, get an abortion? That's crazy. So like interesting. So when I got home, my buddy reached out to my wife and I, and she was like, "Hey, do you want to go to this protest downtown?" I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So we rode our bikes downtown. It was super hot, and I got there and like there were so many people. It felt like every woman in Austin was down at the Capitol, like protesting this news. And there we started the march, and the BPM of the chant, they're saying "my body, my choice," and it was like 115. And so I recorded it on my phone. And then I went home and I was like, God, that feels like really familiar. And so I opened up my DAW and the riff was the exact same tempo as the chant. And it was insane. I was like, if I combine these, I think I've got something really cool. And so that's how the song kind of formed. And I wrote the song, based on that riff I had, and then also the chant. And it was crazy because I kept listening to this iPhone recording of the chant and the march and pots and pans, and it was agonizing to hear it because it's like these women just screaming, wanting the basic right of doing what they want with their own bodies. And that's how the song came about. And so I put the actual phone recording at the top of um the song with the riff, and then I threw it back in at the end, like full Max Martin style. Like let's everything comes back together at the end. So like, um, that's kind of how it happened, and it's like a dance because the chant and the march is so like four on the floor, and I wanted this disco-y kind of thing to like groove and stick in your head, and so it's really like crafted to kind of um stick with people, uh lyrically, arrangement wise, and musically.
I love how I'm so glad I mentioned that it was dancey. I mean, that makes so much sense. It's about the chants, about the people like coming together and saying what they need to say. And yeah, wow. It's so cool to see how you craft a song too, because like you technically nerd out on stuff,
Oh yeah,
and
totally.
then
Hundo P.
somehow like a beautiful song comes out of it. like in the end. And that's I don't think I've ever heard anybody kind of do both of those things so like yin and yang style.
Oh yeah. Thanks.
uh
Yeah. It's fun.
it's an incredibly like well done song, and it's yeah, it's important to hear, and it's so cool that you actually, you took it from the experience of actually going and seeing this thing. I mean, why do you stay in Texas? Just, I mean, I love Texas. Austin, Texas is incredible. I played South by Southwest in 2014, and
Cool.
and but like, what keeps you staying in Texas? What keeps you hopeful for just kind of generations going forward, or what maybe doesn't keep you hopeful?
Yeah. I ask myself that question a lot. Why am I even here? In Texas? Because the laws are crazy. They're not conducive to, my safety. However, I mean, Austin is its own kind of bubble where you can really be whatever you want to be. It's very accepting and very chill. And, um, and it's a place that I hold really dear because it's where I found my sound as a musician. Like my whole, from my bedroom in my parents' house growing up to college to, now it's like I've been here and it's been the thread. And it's such an amazing city too, in that there's amazing food, there's music every night. Um, the people are very like-minded, and it's interesting when I travel around, like on tour, I notice how different every other city is from Austin. And I mean, my family's here, and excuse me, yeah, it's just like I wish that I felt connected to another city the way that I feel connected to Austin, but I just don't. I haven't found that city yet. I will say Portland is a very close second. Um so I don't know, maybe one day, we'll end up somewhere else, but I think at this point I'm still pretty stuck here in a good way.
Yeah,
Um yeah, I don't know.
it's an
And then
amazing city. Like, don't, yeah,
yeah, it's
I've always
great.
had great times there, so
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Um,
Yeah.
I have just two more questions for you. One, I like to ask um people, anybody, when you feel like you're maybe like not quite good enough, or that like imposter syndrome comes in or whatever, what do you do to deal with it?
That's a really good question. Um, I've actually had a lot of therapy over this. So the best thing that I do is make a list of everything that I have accomplished. And I look at that because even just seeing it, I'm like, oh, yeah, I actually can do this. I'm actually doing all right, because it is so easy to not feel good enough, especially as an artist and in a world where, art is very fleeting, and or at least it feels that way. Like sometimes I feel like I put so much effort into making an album, and it's, people hear it, and then, a day later they're like on to the next thing. Um, which, is fine. I mean, that's just the world we're living in today, but that's even more of a challenge to make art that's timeless. And I think, for me, when I feel very down on myself because I do compare myself to other people, which I mean every artist does, it's like I feel like it's so crazy. Like I have so much to say about this. Like art is so subjective, but turning it into a business is insane. It's like trying to make money off of art in this world is so hard and crazy. And so the only thing that you like, naturally, like as an artist, your brain defaults to comparing yourself to other people. Like, well, how are they doing it? How come they're so much further along than me? And the best thing to remedy that is just to like drill it into your own mind the things that you have accomplished and the things that you have done, and like really just write them out, like from the start to now. um and look at like everything you've done, because it's a lot, like I feel like if any artist out there has felt like shit about themselves, like look at what you've done. It's amazing. In a world where all of this is so fleeting, look at the cool things that you've done. Not everybody does it. If it was easy, everybody would do it, but it's not. So I kind of go through this cycle where it's like the counter thoughts of my negative mental space, you know, writing those down, writing down my accomplishments, and then also kind of talking, like I have to talk to myself in a positive way to get out of it. So yeah, I mean, imposter syndrome actually, because you open your phone up, you open your computer up, and you see the best parts of someone's life, and think, well, how come my life doesn't look like that? And it's all a facade, though. Like nobody's gonna post their shitty trip to the grocery store that day. You know what I mean? So it's like I think putting everything into a positive perspective is the best way to remedy that.
That's that. I love the idea of like writing down your stuff, because I think it's a good way to see that like you're stronger than you think you are too.
Totally.
Like every
Yeah.
every time that I thought my life is ending, my world is ruined. We all get through that.
Yeah. For sure.
And it's easy to forget that you did that.
Yeah.
Um, Last thing for you, this has been super fun. I really enjoyed this.
So
It's
glad.
cool to like kind of go deeper on like what you're who you are. What do you got to say to fans? Like what do you have coming up? You have an album coming out. Are you touring? What's going on in your world?
Yeah. So I've got a new single coming out, I think in a couple weeks. It's called Dead End Luck. And it's actually a song about getting off of work after my music store days. um, but it's fun. It's really I think it's a lot of fun to play, and it's kind of humorous, in an ironic way. But so there's that, and then I got a tour coming up in September. Gonna tour up the East Coast. And then I think another single comes out, and then the record comes out. So it'll be a busy fall. I'm so excited though. I'm just excited for the music to be heard, and
What's the new record called?
it's called The Blowback.
Blowback. Whoa, sounds intense.
It is.
And we're gonna be seeing you here in New York City for suicide prevention benefits, I believe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So very excited for that.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks so much for doing this. This is fun.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Thanks for
Yeah,
all the thoughtful questions, and it's a lot of fun.
well, I appreciate that. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you, and yeah, we'll see you soon.
You too. Okay. Bye.
Bye.